The Pittsburgh Steelers attacked the 2024 NFL Draft with toughness and physicality, exactly what they needed to make an imprint in the AFC North. Welcome to the draft room, DP. Listen, they went offensive line. That was one of the most critical positions of needs, right? We all know that they needed an offensive line to get Najee Harris going, to get Jalen Warren going, and they went for the three-peat, man. They went offensive tackle Troy Fontano. Then they followed that up with Zach Frazier, and then towards the back end of the draft, they went Mason McCormick. Let's start at the top, Troy Fontano.
Man, they needed a tackle, Keith. When you look at the 2023 season, Dan Moore, who was their left tackle, accounted for 55 pressures by himself.
Right.
That's very difficult to do in the NFL. So knowing that you have Broderick Jones, now you get Troy Fontano. You can put Broderick on the left. You can flip Troy to the right, or you can leave it as is. Let Troy stay at the left. Let Broderick stay at the right. This was a great way to give whoever's at quarterback, whether it's Russell Wilson, Justin Fields, two young bookend tackles. But when you add the Zach Frazier, right, we know how long they've been clamoring for another kind of franchise center in a sense. Since what, Marquise Pouncey was there? And with Mason McCormick, Keith, the thing that I think about is they drafted bullies. They want to play bully ball. And what has been one of the more black and blue divisions in football for years, for decades, the AFC North. So stock up for Jalen Warren and stock up for Najee Harris, because I expect this team to run the ball, especially with the hire of Arthur Smith coming from Atlanta and Tennessee, where he ran the ball at high clips.
Yeah, I think we talk about the draft, right, and addressing positional needs. This was exactly what they needed. And the key person I'm going to stick on is Najee Harris, right? I was at LSU during the time when Najee was there, and this is a guy that I always believed, right? He needed defined edges, right? And the way that the Pittsburgh Steelers were constructed in the past, they didn't have those guys that were bullies like you just talked about, right? But you get a Troy Fontano who can play anything, is willing to move the power forward. You get a Zach Frazier, right, who will kick everything inside as far as being an interior offensive lineman, and then following it up with Mason McCormick. I think we're going to see a better version of Najee Harris, because this is the type of offensive line that is similar to what he had at Alabama, right, to where they can physically dominate on the trenches. But
displacement.
That's what it's all about, right? And I think we will see Najee Harris be able to do it. But let's keep it going, man. We talk about the offensive side of the ball, the offensive line, but let's talk about some of the defensive prospects that they decided to draft. And who was a real standout guy for you?
Peyton Wilson, right? Like one of the highest graded linebackers in this, one of the best linebackers in the class, if not the best. Athleticism, toughness, grit, the mentality he plays with. He wants to run through a brick wall. He's going to give you a speech that makes you want to run through a brick wall. And when the pick came off the board, I think I looked at you and said, this is a Mike Tomlin guy. And I think the coverage ability, the ability to rush the blitz off the edge, to, think about cross dog blitz on the interior, drop off in the coverage, play the run. He's a guy that could be a complete linebacker, something they've been missing for some time.
Yeah, and Peyton Wilson was one of my highest graded defenders in the entire draft class, right? And the reason why he fell, there was some breaking news, right, that he was missing an ACL. And I said, if he did all of this without an ACL, right, and he's one of my highest graded defenders, go get him an ACL, and this guy can be a Hall of Fame football player, right? Yeah. But I like him that much. I think this is an impact football player. And like we talked about at the Combine, we seen his mentality, how he approaches the game of football. I see why he brought in, and you're exactly right. This is a Mike Tomlin guy. This is a Pittsburgh Steelers guy. This is an AFC North guy. This is a guy that you win Super Bowls with him playing the position. And then he's paired up with LSU linebacker Patrick Queen, right? And I really like that duo because PQ, even in his time in Baltimore, right, he was the best version of himself when Roquan Smith came. And I think Peyton Wilson will kind of play more of that Roquan Smith role and allow PQ to do his thing.
Let's jump back to offense. Roman Wilson in the second, right? You traded away Deontay Johnson to the Carolina Panthers, right? We know that was a marriage that was getting a divorce. That was going to be a departure. You had to find another receiver to go with George Pickens. And I really like this fit for Roman Wilson. You think about that run action, getting those crossers, high, low reads, with Pickens taking the post, the deep over, the 10 to 12 yard over and in cut from a Roman Wilson, a guy that has sub 4.4 speed. He can make plays. And we saw at the Senior Bowl, when you detach him from that offense we saw at Michigan and allow him to play real receiver, we saw routes, we saw tempo. And one of the quotes from some of the DBs down at the Senior Bowl was, He's a no-nonsense wide receiver. He's going to get into his release, into his routes with quickness and suddenness. He's not going to dance. I love this fit for Arthur Smith in this offense.
Yeah, and we've seen this before with Russell Wilson, right? Talking about Tyler Lockett having one of those 5'9", 5. Yeah, Doug Baldwin. He loves these type of wide receivers. And one thing we noticed at the Senior Bowl was that Roman Wilson was a high IQ type of football player. And then Russell Wilson, right?
Yes.
Roman and Russell. Russell Wilson is a guy.
Wilson.
Yeah, Wilson and Wilson connection. It will be coming. But what you see is that Roman understands the scramble drill also, and that's where Russell Wilson makes a lot of his money. So, recapping this Pittsburgh Steelers draft class, DP, what draft grade?
I give him an A-. When you walk in, grades are really associated on what you do and how do you handle your needs and what type of players you get. They fixed the offensive line with 3 picks, they became more physical, like I said, bully ball, but also getting a Roman Wilson, getting a Peyton Wilson. This was an outstanding draft class.
I agree 100%. And listen, toughness and grit will always be a part of the Pittsburgh Steelers mantra, and they did exactly that in the 2024 NFL draft, and that's why they earned that draft grade.